near-abstraction in the Amazing Digital Circus is a mystery that leaves us with more questions than answers with every new chapter. The latest episode hinted that it might be triggered when Caine, the unpredictable ringmaster, tampers with the minds and memories of the humans trapped inside. However, there is a common thread connecting all the abstracted characters we know, or at least those who've come close. While the simple act of sleeping is essential for human survival, in the digital world it seems to be the most vulnerable and dangerous time of all. Today, we'll uncover how what started as a throwaway gag in a hallway during the pilot escalated into what appears to be a human's final rest in the circus before their tragic end. The first mention regarding what sleeping inside the digital circus might trigger occurs in the pilot episode. When Ragatha, Jax, and Pomni go looking for Kaufmo, Ragatha mentions the following while they're walking down the hallway of rooms.
So, this is where we all live. Or well, where we all sleep at night. Even though we don't really need to sleep, it's sometimes nice to kind of take a break from everything and have a bit of a routine, you know?
This makes it clear that sleeping isn't a necessity within the simulation, but rather a way to try and distract oneself for a moment from Kaine's eccentric madness. They feel like their room is a safe space where they can be themselves and immerse themselves in their own thoughts, something that, as we'll see later, isn't actually the case. Later, we see Pomni trying to sleep in the teaser. Wake up, Pomni.
Hey, Pomni! Guess what?
Here, we see her overthinking everything that happened during her first adventure in the digital circus, unable to sleep until Caine arrives to interrupt her. Here, we clearly see that Caine is more than capable of barging into anyone's room, meaning there really is no safe place inside the circus. Furthermore, we notice that just like in real life, it's right before we fall asleep that the most thoughts race through our minds, which, as Ragatha mentioned, is the start of something bad. It isn't until episode 2 that we finally see just how dangerous the simple act of sleeping can be. The chapter starts with Pomni having a nightmare, feeling like her arm has started to abstract, and immediately being thrown into Caine's cellar, all while Ragatha, Jax, and Caine talk about her in a rather cruel way. This is understandable, given they had only met her a day prior and don't really trust anyone inside the circus yet. What's interesting is that unlike Jax in episode 7, we don't see the classic abstracted eyes on Pomni the moment she wakes up, so compared to the purple rabbit, Pomni wasn't as close to abstraction as she believed. The last thing we see directly related to the video's topic is what we already mentioned happened to Jax in the latest episode. Remember that at the end of episode 6, the rabbit had a minor anxiety attack due to his fight with Pomni regarding his true feelings. After this, we see him quite depressed during the beach adventure, acting very differently from the antagonistic and annoying Jax we know. This worries even Zubul, who tries to tease him a bit to cheer him up. It doesn't work and only causes Jax to storm off to his room annoyed. It's here, surrounded by darkness and his own thoughts, that Jax watches as the hands of his old friend, Ribbit, emerge from a random corner of his room, reaching out to touch his hand without hesitation. This is where Jax's dream begins, surrounded by images of his abstracted friends Ribbit and Kaufmo, letting himself be carried away by his memories and the calm this dream brings him. Luckily, he is accidentally awoken by Pomni, but the fact that we see him with the classic abstracted eyes for a moment upon waking, unlike what happened to Pomni in episode 2, makes us realize that this wasn't entirely a dream. He was actually quite close to abstraction. But how real is this whole scene? It's very possible that by the time Jack starts seeing Ribbit's arms stretching out and traversing his room, the rabbit was already asleep, and touching his hands only made it more evident that nothing is real. However, the change in Jax's eyes did happen outside the dream, so regardless of how real it all was, it makes it clear that this strange dream almost caused the purple rabbit to abstract. There are a couple more facts regarding dreams inside the circus, but they aren't exactly canon. Following the controversy involving the real-life streets shown in episode 7, which caused several doxing incidents and people trying to visit these places in the real world, Gooseworx confirmed that any data relevant to the series would be shown within the 9 official episodes and nowhere else. Knowing this, it's still worth mentioning the promotional video for the Jax plushie wearing Pomni's outfit and holding a tiny Ribbit plush. We see him annoying all his fellow circus members, only to apologize right after and say nice things about them, something strange that Jax himself notices, only to immediately hear Ribbit call him Pomni Pomni right before being caught by Kane's hand. He snaps out of his dream and sees he was inside the nightmare corner, a reference to what happened in episode 7 with that corner where Ribbit's hands came out and his psychedelic dream began. The second and most important instance occurs in one of the first images shown of the series, a collection of random unrendered scenes. One shows Gangle looking in a bathroom mirror surrounded by her broken masks, and another shows Pomni entering a room full of computers with Kane's face, which we've analyzed in previous videos. But the most important one here is where we see Pomni lying in bed unable to sleep because multiple miniature Kanes seem to be dancing and making noise around her head. Added to the fact that Kane also appears to exist in Jax's surreal dream, at least in an abstract way, this leads us to believe that Kane also has influence within everyone's dreams. He possibly makes his mental modifications during these moments of vulnerability so they can enjoy their adventures more, doing so subtly enough that they don't even notice. Though not subtly enough, as Jax shows in the latest episode that he did notice all these modifications. Having mentioned all this, we can theorize about what might have happened to the first abstracted character we saw, Kaufmo. The most popular theory so far is that abstraction begins when Caine modifies the minds of the humans trapped in the digital circus too much. However, based on what Pomni mentions, it seems Caine has already modified everyone's minds, as it is this questionable action by the ringmaster that prevents everyone from remembering too much of their past before entering the simulation, and above all, prevents them from remembering their own names. But even though mind modification does influence abstraction, we can't rule out that mental and emotional instability is the straw that breaks the camel's back and triggers it. This is why it's very possible that when Jax, Ragatha, and Pomni enter Kaufmo's room and finds him abstracted, he had gone through something similar to Jax, having a dream of his old friend Ribbit that brought him mental peace after discovering how Caine plays with their minds. We know this because Kaufmo's walls are painted with drawings and phrases alluding to the fact that he cannot escape Caine. Plus, thanks to a painting where Kaufmo seems to open a door and find an abstracted being, possibly the moment Ribbit extracted, it implies Kaufmo was already quite depressed in the days leading up to his abstraction, something the other circus members make very clear.
No, not really. I think Kaufmo's gone insane. Last time I spoke with him, he was rambling endlessly about some exit.
How is Kaufmo doing? I hope he's not still mad at me for not laughing at his jokes.
Added to his recent obsession with finding an exit, whether for himself or to help his friends avoid ending up like Ribbit, this caused him to actually complete that psychedelic dream and end up abstracting, unlike Jax. Remember, we've analyzed in previous videos that Jax's dream seems to be a representation of him entering Caine's mouth and being consumed by him, that is, consumed by the simulation and becoming part of it. In every background change, Jax seems to pass through a sort of door within his dream. It is just before entering the third one, after he closes his eyes and looks quite happy with everything happening around him, that Pomni wakes him up. So it's possible that upon passing through this final door, humans are consumed by abstraction. As we've mentioned in the Soma theory, it's possible that the abstracted are an accumulation of human minds, where all their memories and the data that composes them within the simulation merge, causing their minds to be in complete peace and harmony while their bodies fill with rage and a desire to destroy. Only darkness is capable of calming them and briefly reuniting the residues of their minds with their abstracted body, just as Kinger tells us happened to his beloved wife, Queenie. It is possible that this mental peace is a representation of an eternal dream, one where they will never be alone, where there is no pain or insecurity, simply a desire to bring their friends to join everyone and finally rest. This could explain why Pomni's dream didn't bring her close to abstraction, since her dream, or rather nightmare, was based on her newfound fear of becoming a monster with no control over herself, just like what happened to Kaufmo. Also, being the newest human in the circus, she didn't have any important friends or acquaintances inside the simulation, so there wasn't really a way to call her to join the hive mind. This could change in one of the last 2 episodes. It's possible that one of her friends abstracts, and she could be tempted by the surreal world of peace and serenity. The 2 most likely candidates are Jax and Kinger. Jax is closer than ever after everything that has happened to him, mainly in episodes 6 and 7, making him doubt his own memories and whether he even has control over any aspect of his life. Added to his constant need to pretend that nothing and no one matters to him while pushing away everyone who tries to lend a hand, Jax is one of the most likely candidates for abstraction. However, Kinger isn't far behind. Remember that he tries to spend as much time as possible inside his pillow fort, a place we know helps him not only maintain his sanity, but also brings back memories of his wife, Queenie. It is possible that he is hiding a very important secret for the upcoming episodes. Kinger might have the ability to daydream, or dream while awake, which is how he can feel Queenie's presence, just as Jax felt the presence of Ribbit and Kaufmo inside his dream, but without the danger of becoming abstracted, as he is someone quite resilient. This would be a huge help if we link it to what we already mentioned in the True Exit Theory video, where we saw that Caine might have hidden the exit inside the cellar where he locks up all the abstracted beings. This would be the safest place inside the circus, since it provokes so much fear in all the humans. But thanks to Kinger, it's possible they could communicate with Queenie, or, if we theorize even further, with any other abstracted being, like Ribbit, watching Jax break down and open up to Ribbit regarding what happened before his abstraction, or even Kaufmo. This would be a great way to learn the pasts of the important characters who abstracted before Pomni's arrival at the circus. In fact, we can go even further and meet Scratch himself, the first abstracted being. He could be the nucleus of the abstraction, revealing that abstraction is his own plan to save the humans from Kane's clutches, uniting their minds but giving them the freedom to keep their memories and personalities. It would mean trading their prison, Caine and his adventures, for a cage that is slightly bigger, but at least offers more peace and tranquility. This could be the best it can aspire to within the simulation. This would be a major plot point, trying to convince Scratch that a third option might exist by continuing the search for the exit. However, as Gooseworx herself has mentioned, the purpose of the circus is to find meaning in a stagnant life. So it is possible that Scratch already knows the truth, that there is no exit from the circus, that they are just data inside a computer destined to live adventures for all eternity, or at least until their fragile minds can't take it anymore, making the nightmare of abstraction perhaps the least painful path to spend eternity trapped in the digital circus.